This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. The Panama Canal opened almost 100 years ago. More than 1 million ships have passed through the waterway since 1914. The Panama Canal connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It reduces travel by 13,000 kilometers. It avoids the need for ships to sail around Cape Horn at the bottom of South America. More than 40 ships pass through the canal each day, more than 14,000 each year. Now, a major expansion project will permit more ships and bigger ships to pass through the canal. Jorge Luis Quijano is the Panama Canal's Executive Vice President of Engineering. He says the present canal has a total capacity of about 340 million tons a year that it can handle. That's the maximum capacity. With the expansion, we expect to double that, over 600 million tons that we can handle in a year. Ships pass through a series of locks. These locks raise a ship to the level of Gatun Lake at the canal entrance on the Atlantic side. They lower the ships back to sea level on the Pacific side. For years, shipbuilders limited the size of many ships so that they could fit through the Panama Canal. But now, many shipping companies use bigger ships to transport more goods as a way to reduce costs. Jorge Luis Quijano says the expansion project will allow many of these larger ships to use the canal. This new canal actually is offering a larger vessel that it can handle, with deeper draft, with a longer and wider vessel. Workers are building the new locks alongside the old ones, which will remain in use. The existing locks are 305 meters long and 33 meters wide. The new ones will be 427 meters long and 55 meters wide. They will be able to handle ships with drafts of more than 15 meters. Currently, ships can ride only 12 meters deep in the canal. Engineers could not make the new locks too big. Mr. Quijano says the plans had to balance the size of the locks with the cost for ships to use the canal. We had to look at the optimal size of vessel that would make the return on the investment of a high value to us. So we chose what size of vessels that could actually pay for this project. The cost is estimated at more than $5 billion. The new locks are set to open in 2014, the 100th anniversary of the Panama Canal. You can watch a video about the project at voaspecialenglish.com. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Brain imaging was once thought to be too costly and difficult for widespread use in the developing world. But the technology soon may be available in poor countries. Brain imaging creates pictures of brain activity. It uses infrared light, similar to the light produced by a television remote control. Brain imaging can identify the first signs of learning and development delays in newborns and young children. Experts know that malnutrition or a lack of healthful food can be linked to such problems. The technology has a long name, functional near-infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRS. It uses special light to provide images of the brain. Experts say FNIRS is safer than other imaging methods, and FNIRS is easy to transport. The equipment can be loaded into a vehicle and driven from village to village. Claire Elwell is a professor of medical physics at University College London. She helped develop the technology. She says the device measures oxygen in the blood to learn how babies' brains are developing. She says it can show how much information the brain is processing and where. Ms. Elwell led an FNIRS study in rural Gambia involving babies between 4 and 8 months old. They were examined 3 times over 15 months. Researchers noted the babies' reactions to different images and sounds. Then, the results were compared to those of British children. Ms. Elwell says the research provided more data on the links between malnutrition and brain development. She says the goal is to identify babies who need better diets to avoid harm to brain development. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Since the 1970s, scientists have been searching for ways to link the brain with computers. Brain-computer interface, or BCI technology, could help people with disabilities send commands to machines. Recently, scientists demonstrated a small robotic vehicle directed by a person's thoughts. The demonstration took place at the Swiss Embassy in Washington. Jose Milan and Michele Tavella developed the system. Mr. Tavella can even talk as he watches the vehicle and guides it with his thoughts. Mr. Tavella is a researcher at the Federal Polytechnic School in Lausanne, Switzerland. In the laboratory, he can operate a wheelchair just by thinking about moving his left or right hand. Professor Milan is the team leader. He says systems like those being developed in Lausanne and other places may be available in less than 10 years. The aim is to give people with physical disabilities new ways to communicate and control devices through brain-machine interfaces. Our brain has billions of nerve cells. These send signals through the spinal cord to the muscles to give us the ability to move. But spinal cord injuries or other conditions can prevent these weak electrical signals from reaching the muscles. The researchers designed a special cap for the user. It captures the signals from the scalp and redirects them to a computer. The computer interprets the signals and commands the motorized wheelchair. The wheelchair also has 2 cameras that identify objects in its path. They help the computer react to commands from the brain. Professor Milan says scientists keep improving the computer software that identifies brain signals and turns them into simple commands. He says the practical possibilities that brain-machine interfaces offer to disabled people can be grouped in two categories: communication and controlling physical devices and virtual devices. One example is the wheelchair. He says his team has set two goals. First is testing with real patients so as to demonstrate that this is a feasible technology they can benefit from. And the second aspect of that is to guarantee that they can use the technology over long periods of time. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can learn more about the world every day and learn English at the same time at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at VOA Learning English. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Getting and staying connected to the internet is quickly becoming very important in Africa. A team of Americans and Kenyans have developed an internet router made especially for the continent. They say it can keep the internet available even in areas with undependable electricity and internet service. The device is called BRIC. It can plug into an electric outlet, but it can also be battery-powered. Al Banda is a blogger in Cameroon. He saw the device for the first time at an information technology conference in Berlin, Germany. Mr. Banda said BRIC could solve a problem he has experienced. He says in his community in Cameroon, electricity is not dependable. Also, it is very difficult to get access to the internet, even with an internet service provider. Mr. Banda says BRIC is an African answer to an African problem. The Kenyan-based nonprofit technology company Ushahidi developed BRIC after raising money through the funding website Kickstarter. Ushahidi official Eric Hersman says the router is able to move among internet networks. He says if there is a problem with the internet connection, the device will look for a 3G network with its SIM card. He says the BRIC can be taken anywhere. Eric Hersman says the BRIC will go into production as soon as the company raises $125,000. Ushahidi has collected about half that so far. It plans to make up to 1,500 devices at first, mainly for Africa and India. Mr. Hersman expects each device to sell for about $100. The BRIC could be a solution to internet connection problems in Africa, but it could also find uses in developed countries. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. More than 3 billion people are at risk from indoor air pollution because of the heating or cooking fuels they use. Most live in Africa, India, and China. They use biomass fuels like wood, crop waste, animal waste, or coal. These solid fuels may be the least costly fuels available, but they are also a major cause of health problems and death. For more than 30 years, the Aprovecchio Research Center has been designing cleaner, low-cost cooking stoves for the developing world. Dean Still is the director of the group, which is based in the United States. He notes a World Health Organization estimate that more than 1.5 million people a year die from breathing smoke from solid fuels. Mr. Still says, and half of the people on planet Earth every day use wood or biomass for cooking. These are the people on Earth who have less money, and the richer people use oil and gas. It's been estimated that wood is running out more quickly than oil and gas. And so it is very important for the poorer people to have very efficient stoves that protect their forests and that protect their health. Every year, Approvecho holds a stove camp at its testing station in Cottage Grove, Oregon. Engineers, inventors, students, and others come together to design and test different methods and materials for improving stoves. Over the years, the group has made stoves using mud, bricks, sheet metal, clay, ceramics, and old oil drums. Most of the stoves look like large, deep cooking pots. They have an opening at the bottom for the fire and a place on top to put a pot. Through the years, Dean Still says his group has experimented with countless stove designs. He says the goal is to make a very inexpensive stove that costs about $5. It would make very little smoke, so it would be safe for health and reduce global warming and deforestation. Approvecho has now partnered with a stove manufacturer in China. The company is making Approvecho's first mass-produced stoves. They are said to use 40 to 50% less wood than an open fire and produce 50 to 75% less smoke. A company called Stove Tech is selling them through its website for less than $10. Dean Still says that more than 100,000 have been sold so far. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.